Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. We're back at the base today. We've done enough over at the Ocean Monument for the time being, and I really badly need a place to store all of the resources that we gathered, because as you saw, we had nearly 2 full double chests of prismarine, which really doesn't have a spot in this storage system quite yet. So I think one of the missions for the next little while is probably going to be to set up some kind of permanent storage system for all of our items so we can move them out of the farmhouse here and into somewhere where it's going to be a little bit more permanent and it's going to have a large amount of storage. But before we do that today, I wanted to tackle a couple of things that I feel like I have missed out of previous episodes. For example, the fact that we brought back these cacti from the desert in a previous episode, but I never quite explained what you do with cactus and how you can get more of it. So let's take this cactus out to our industrial farming area and we'll do something with that today. We will start out a cactus farm. I'm also going to do the same with pumpkins and melons, because not only are they useful, for example, for pumpkins for making snow golems and iron golems, but melons are a vital potion ingredient, and both pumpkins and melons can be traded with farmer villagers for a bunch of emeralds. So it's probably going to be a good idea in the long term to have a pumpkin and melon farm that's going to produce lots of lovely fruit for us. So for that, we will need to get our redstone heads on, but first of all, let's go out to the industrial area. I will bring some sand with me. We might bring some red sand as well, just for a bit of variety, and I'll talk to you guys about cactus. Farming cactus is an interesting process because it doesn't really work like anything else you farm. It doesn't really grow like anything else you farm. So cactus can only be placed on either of the 2 types of sand, whether it is regular sand or red sand. And the fun thing about cactus is that you can't place anything next to it. You can't grow 2 cacti next to each other like so, because it literally won't let me click right there. You can only plant them a distance away from each other. And that has something to do with the fact that cacti will actually damage you if you walk too close to them, and will damage items as well. Now, if you force an item to be placed down next to a cactus, the cactus itself will actually break. And that provides some interesting mechanics that you can work with when it comes to growing the stuff in the first place. This doesn't just happen when you place a block next to a cactus, it also happens when that cactus grows. And placing a block up there will not affect whether or not the cactus is going to grow. This cactus is going to grow another block sooner or later, and I've been staring at it for a couple of minutes waiting for it to grow. Unfortunately, it isn't right now, but believe me, it will. And once that cactus grows, the top block of it next to this one is going to decide that it doesn't want to remain attached because there's clearly a block there. And so that's going to instantly break and fall off. And with a collection mechanism nearby, such as a water stream or a series of hoppers around it perhaps, you can very easily collect an infinite supply of cactus this way. It will just keep growing and keep popping off, and sometimes the cactus will just fall directly on top of itself and will immediately kill the item. Like you've seen in previous videos, cactus will just destroy an item if thrown against it, but in the event that the cactus actually bounces out into the hopper collection or water stream or whatever we have, it's possible to just collect more cactus that way. And the fun thing is that the block up here that's going to break the cactus doesn't even need to be a full solid block. It can be something as simple as a ladder, a fence gate, or something like that. And in fact, fence gates are the ones you'll find people commonly using for cactus farms, because in their open state, like so, the cactus that grows is able to fall through it. It basically acts as a block that any entities can travel through in its open state like that. So you'll find people building cactus farms like this with the view to having the cacti just pop off in any direction, and the fence gate is the thing that breaks it. So this right here is a cactus farm. It's not a very good one, but it is a cactus farm. And by duplicating this a few more times, adding in a collection mechanism and so forth, you will find that you will have more cactus than you'll ever need, as long as you're in the same area as this for a little while, so you can have the cactus loaded in and give it a chance to grow. And it is possible to make a lossless cactus farm by balancing hopper minecarts on the edges of these cacti, or surrounding a hopper in the center that's going to pick up any items that pop off of here. The hopper minecart being an entity, it won't actually stop the cacti from growing and breaking on the fence gate here. So it's actually a very weird system, but it works. It works really well. So let's take this down and make a slightly better cactus farm, by which I mean one that actually has a collection mechanism among other things. Yeah, there we go. That's a little bit of space. I think we'll start with 6x6 for now. We'll frame this out in dark oak the way we have with our other builds around here, so it starts to fit in with the landscape. What should we do with this? I'm thinking maybe some sort of like watchtower style thing, maybe? maybe. If there's going to be a bridge here, then it could be like the beginnings of a gatehouse or something like that. But ultimately, this is going to allow for a nice even spacing of the cacti, and we'll have a collection chest here at the front. Now, this isn't going to be all the cacti we can plant here. We are going to build this upwards as well, because then the cacti can just fall down into the water that we're going to have coming from maybe the corners over here, so that it all flows towards this spot there. And I think that should be fairly straightforward to do. So with the water coming from each of these corners, like so, any item we throw into the water stream is just going to end up heading down towards that collection area over there. Like, regardless of whether or not, it's not going to get stuck on any blocks or anything like that. The water is always flowing past these blocks. So yeah, we'll just chuck in a bunch of items at random. Obviously, anything that lands on the cactus there would end up being destroyed, so we don't need to worry too much about that. But yep, it looks like everything is heading down here into the collection area, and there's going to be a couple of hoppers feeding into this chest. It's nice and simple. And obviously, in the fiction of the world, we probably wouldn't have a collection chest for a cactus farm right here at the beginnings of this watchtower, but in reality, in the practical perspective of having this be a farm for us, it's nice to just have the collection chest right at the front, so we don't have to go inside the farm to grab anything. Of course, the disadvantage of spacing out the cacti this far is going to be using 2 fence gates instead of just 1, but there's also less chance of a cacti springing off one side and then landing on a cactus on the opposite side. So how about we actually take down some of these cacti and start planting them in here, because they're not going to grow any faster or slower if they are just around here. I'm also going to use a fence gate up here to hold up the next layer of cactus, just because it looks good for the rest of the build here. Now the hoppers are in place, any cacti that break off of here will end up going into these hoppers, and you may actually find that the speed that items travel over the surface of water means that some items skip over the top of the hoppers themselves. Let's try that out with a couple of these and see if they all go in the hopper. No, it looks like they're all making it. They're all making it into there, but you may want to place an inverted stair block or something like that on top of here so that you can access the chest, but the items will just kind of slam into the side of it here and just be collected in the hoppers, like so. So the items can't travel any further than that. They're always going to end up inside the hoppers, but with the inverted stair over the top of that, you can still access the chest here. Of course, now I have to wait for some of this to grow before I can plant the 8th one over there, and of course the problem with the Cactus Farm is that they are slow-growing plants. Much like sugarcane, they do take a while, and it's a random game tick that is required to allow them to grow. So this is going to take a little while for me to get a little bit more, and it's always going to have a higher yield the more cactus plants you put into one of these farms. So if you want an absolute ton of cactus throughout your time in Minecraft, then make sure you build your farm nice and big. In this case, I don't think I will be using a huge amount of it. Cactus can be boiled down, can be smelted to turn it into green dye, and green dye is an important ingredient of other dyes like cyan, so it might be worth having in the long run, but I don't think I'm going to need buckets and buckets of the stuff. At the very least, I want to make sure this cactus farm works, though, so I'm going to go AFK for a little while and make sure that we actually get something out of this farm before I continue building it up any further, and then we'll come back and we'll build the melon and pumpkin farms after that. Good news, the cactus farm does work. I was doubting myself there for so long because it just doesn't grow very fast. But look, we have 11 cacti in here, and I even snagged one of those to put up there, so we have finished off the top of this. And there's every chance that right now the cacti is actually breaking and falling onto some loose blocks inside of here. So I'm trying to build up the walls of this tower. Kind of thought that I had run out of smooth stone, and then I remembered a few episodes ago we did one of my favorite time lapses ever, and I dug a whole bunch of it out of a quarry. So I'm gonna come over here, grab a little bit more stone to make to make some stone slabs, stone bricks, and just to use for the walls of this. But so happy we have those chests there. Building a quarry was possibly the best thing I've decided to do for a while, and I do plan on continuing this and making it look a little bit neater, because right now it's just giant stone faces, but it's tucked away behind the mountain over here, so we will barely notice it. But yeah, I've started working on the design for a little watchtower here, making it a little bit rounder by adding in these stairs at the base, making the walls a little bit thicker so we can add some detail. I also really like the idea of somehow the inside being covered in stuff like andesite. You can kind of see I'm using a bit more andesite in there, and that's as though the cactus, when it's popped off, has like scraped the stone and has made it a little bit rougher, although I really don't think cacti would do a great deal to full stone like this, but you know, over time, you never know. I've also added these 2 spruce doors to the front to make it look a little bit more like a watchtower and less like a really obvious cactus farm, but I think that's going to do a good job for now. We might even put a couple of cobblestone walls out the front of it to put torches on or something like that, so then that kind of frames the door a little bit better. It makes it look a little bit more, I guess, official. I don't really have a plan for this tower. I'm just sort of freestyling it, but considering we put together this build palette the other day, I'm pretty confident in what kind of materials I want to use. So I'm pretty happy to just get on with this, and I'm going to do a little bit more off camera, and then we're going to start on the pumpkin and melon farms. Well, as it goes, this ain't too bad. It's not often that I tend to do this kind of like flag-flying high medieval kind of stuff, so it's, yeah, it could use a little bit of tweaking. Maybe we'll work on that a little bit more off camera, but before we run out of time with today's episode, I do want to get to what I had planned next. You can tell I've been working on it for a while because we managed to get ourselves 36 cactus, all of which I am going to take, and we can throw it in a furnace to make some cactus green, which is not something we've done yet in this series, amazingly enough. I'm just going to throw the rest of this stuff in a shulker box for the moment, just to clear my head, clear my inventory a little bit, and get all of this trucked back over to the farmhouse. But yeah, like I said, we really need to get another storage system set up at some point because it is definitely getting a little cluttered up in here. For our next farm, we're going to need some pistons and some observers. Probably bring a little bit of redstone with us as well. Let me bring these trapdoors as well, because there's a couple of windows left in that tower that I still need to fix. And I wonder what else we will need. I think maybe some building blocks of some kind, although I'm not entirely sure what I want to use right now. This is probably just going to be a mock-up, a kind of demonstration kind of thing this time around, but in future we will come up with a fun design for this. You know what, let's use terracotta for now, and we can dye whatever terracotta we want, different colors. In fact, now we have cactus green smelting in the furnace down here. We could always use some of that and dye some of this terracotta, so you can take a look at a terracotta color that is not available to you out in the Badlands. That's right, we have green terracotta now. I think these two would make quite a decent color combination, but cactus green can be combined to turn it into lime green, or if you combine it with bone meal. So we have the option of including another lime kind of color in here with the dark green. I guess one of the other things we'll probably need for this is a hoe, which I do not seem to have, so I must have used it up at some point. No worries, we'll make a cobblestone one. Nothing too fancy. We're going to set things up here for now, but I think in the fullness of time we will build this somewhere else, because this is not the ideal location for our pumpkin and melon farm. Let's pop a bucket of water in there to hydrate this farmland, and let's explain how melon and pumpkin seeds work. They both work the same way, so it's nice and easy to explain. Let me carve another piece of farmland there. There we go. So pumpkins and melons will both take time to grow stalks in here, and if I had some bone meal on me, oh gosh, the organization here, it's terrible. So pumpkins and melons work in a similar way to other crops, but with a few differences. They will start off as seeds in the ground, and eventually these stalks will grow. I'm just going to bone meal them here to save time. When the stalk turns yellow and no longer accepts bone meal, that's when you know it has fully matured. And then at a random point at any time, a pumpkin or a melon can grow on one of the adjacent full blocks, and typically this can only be done if there is grass or any kind of grass dirt variant nearby. So it's not going to grow directly onto stone, for example. If you're wondering why your melons or pumpkins don't grow, check the blocks immediately adjacent to them are some sort of variant of dirt. I think farmland is also a possibility. In order to automate this, we have to take advantage of the fact that when the stalk changes from being an upright stalk to being attached to a fruit, it actually creates a block update that can be detected by an observer. So by placing an observer facing into this stalk, it's going to generate a redstone signal out the back of the observer when the stalk updates. And by running a redstone dust next to this block here, we can actually activate this, or at least I think we can. And if the melon or pumpkin, whichever one happens to be growing here, grows into this space, it will be immediately pushed by this piston. The way you can force it to grow there is to limit the amount of surrounding farmland space that it can grow in. So if I remove this block here or replace it for something that it's not going to grow onto, like terracotta or stone, then it's definitely always going to grow a melon or pumpkin here. And this reduces how often this is going to grow, because it checks for valid spaces to spawn a melon or pumpkin, and you're only giving it one space in which to do that. But you can make this a little bit more efficient by putting a piston facing this way, adding a redstone dust on that side as well, and then putting the water underneath this observer block here, and then making this block here grass. So now this pumpkin or melon can grow on either side of this, and it will automatically get pushed off by the pistons surrounding it. Now for this demonstration, it's just a matter of waiting for one of them to grow so that you can see this in action. There we go, we got a pumpkin, finally. That took a little while of waiting, but that's how quick it happens. In the blink of an eye, the pumpkin stem grows, it gets pushed by the piston, and that gives you a pumpkin drop. Now, obviously, that's going to be pushed into some sort of water stream or collection device. You could have minecart hoppers running underneath here if you wanted to, and generally speaking, with these farms, the bigger the better, because if you want to get a substantial amount of pumpkins or melons, you're going to have to wait a good while for each individual stem to grow. So much like the cactus, it really helps if you tend to pile them pretty high. I should also add that the water here is kind of optional. Melons and pumpkins will continue to grow pretty well, even if their farmland does not receive hydration. The main problem with that, of course, being that once the farmland loses its hydration, if you knock the stem out, if you don't end up with any seeds planted there or anything, it's probably going to dry out pretty quickly. So the main reason I'm including the water here is just for the sake of, ease of use. So here is a pretty standard design for a melon or pumpkin farm that will simply push the two pistons either side of one of these stalks whenever it grows, either to the left or the right. Both pistons will fire, and that will mean that whenever anything grows here, it's going to get pushed off here into this water stream. Now, this isn't completely lossless, because occasionally some melons will just end up getting stuck on the edge of the grass here and won't flow down into the water stream. But considering the amount you're going to be producing, especially if you layer this up to kind of like 3 or 4 or 5 layers high, then that's going to produce a heck of a lot of melon and pumpkin for you pretty fast. One thing to note is that melons or pumpkins will not grow if you have a block sitting above the stalk like that. They need at least one block space above the stalk in order to grow at all. And I don't know exactly why that is. That's just part of their functionality in the code. So you need to make sure that if you're growing this in multiple layers, that you make sure you leave one gap between the layers before you start the next one. The other good news about these farms is that they are relatively cheap to build. You only need observers and pistons, which you should have a plentiful supply of once you've got enough quartz, redstone, and a little bit of iron to go spare. And melon and pumpkin seeds are fairly easy to come by. Once you have a couple of melons or pumpkins, you can generate a whole bunch of seeds very easily. A single melon slice will break down into some seeds. A pumpkin will break down into seeds, or you can carve it to get 4 seeds each time. They basically throw seeds at you after a certain point, so it's nice and easy to do that. And there we go, we've got 12 melon seeds already, 23 pumpkin seeds just from the ones that we've carved out there in the wild, and a pretty decent melon and pumpkin farm design waiting for us to find a good place to put it, which is probably going to be up here in the industrial area where I'm planning on building a bunch of the farms, but ultimately I think we'll probably build a little melon or pumpkin patch somewhere down here for aesthetic purposes in the agricultural area as well. But for today, that's going to be it for this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. This has been a long period of pre-recording videos ahead of my break for Christmas. So as of today, I should be traveling home again, and I will be able to get back to making more episodes for you. But thank you so much for your support with this series over the last little while. I've been trying my best to make week daily videos for you guys, and I really hope you've been enjoying them. Once again, that is going to be it for today. My name has been Pixlriffs. Don't forget to leave a like on the episode if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye for now.